Right guys, TacticalRab back again today. Hope you're all doing well and enjoying your day so far. In these last 24 hours or so, one of the big topics of discussion has been Standoff's arrival here in Call of Duty Black Ops Cold War. The pros were scrimming on it last night for pretty much the first time, deciding, okay, which map should it replace for Search and Destroy, for Hardpoint, is it viable for Control, and actually is it viable at all in the current state of this new game with the faster movement and the different stuff, and maybe the spawns a little bit dodgy. We're going to be diving into that today. And try to take your thoughts in the comment section below. Like if you guys enjoyed the video, subscribe if you're new as always. I'd greatly appreciate it. It really helps out the channel. Thank you very much indeed for doing that. And well, let's dive right in. First of all, to discuss this in terms of Search and Destroy map sets. As Arcitys says, people are hiding in boats. I cannot take this map serious. I gotta check every card to even flag. I just straight up gotta get better. So these are some screenshots, of course, from Miami. There's been a lot of discussion. All right, Standoff comes in. I'm pretty sure it will be in for Search and Destroy. The Hardpoint has been a question we'll talk about in a second here. But of course, there are two maps in the game right now that people do not like for Search and Destroy. One of them is Miami, and one of them, of course, is Checkmate. Only one bomb site really is viable on that map. So of course you can see right here, Atlanta FaZe versus New York Subliners. This is of course in their grand final series, the best in line of the stage 3 major. Places, in a spot right here, holding the left side of the alley. And then there's this spot as well that you can see where Silly is just hiding on this bus. And Priestahh can't even see in this round 11, so in this game 5 between Minnesota Rokkr and the Los Angeles Grillers. So pretty interesting stuff. Arcitys clearly not a big fan of this map, and as Envoy says, map sucks, it is hide and seek. Clearly not been the greatest map for OpTic so far this season. There's not really too many teams that love Miami, I'm pretty sure, and Atlanta FaZe are also a team that doesn't like it either. You've got to check 50 corners to even attempt to plant the bomb. I also see teams use 4 ARs. What a joke, says Envoy. So not particularly happy with Miami Search and Destroy at the present time, but of course not everyone necessarily agrees, because the thing is, if you're FaZe and OpTic, you'd probably be pretty happy for Miami to leave the map set. You're a pretty good team on Checkmate Search and Destroy. Other teams that aren't so good at Checkmate Search and Destroy probably aren't particularly keen for Miami to go anywhere, right? So there's always that discussion when the pros end up voting on things that it kind of benefits teams that aren't particularly good. I mean, the thing that for FaZe, which is kind of scary, is the fact that Miami is certainly their worst Search and Destroy. So if you get rid of it, like FaZe just won the previous championship, they might get even better, which is certainly a concern for the competition. And as well, Dashy says right here, you can plant both bomb sites though, because that's what people say, right? Okay, Miami, at least both bomb sites are viable, which is true, but the visibility isn't great. I think without smokes and without snipers, I mean, maybe with snipers it would play even worse, but without smokes, there's really not too much ingenuity that goes on this map. It's pretty ugly to watch. Loading into our Miami Search and Destroy to watch a game 5, not exactly the prettiest thing in Call of Duty history. So either way, I don't really mind which one goes. Should both of them go? Can we somehow find another Search and Destroy map to bring in? I'm not really sure we can at this point, so probably it'll be one or the other disappears for Standoff. Which one should it be? That certainly is up in the air. But well, there has been some significant questions about Standoff, right? Because as Parasite says right here, this is something that wasn't really a problem back in the day. Back in the day, you get on dexterity, you get on dead silence, you don't make any noise when you're mantling over stuff. Right here, there's a lot of things to mantle over. There's the half wall, of course. There's a lot of stuff that you can get up on, like the tank, for example. And well, as he says, look, the map is godlike, but I can already see the mantling being slow and loud, being an issue, breaking into some hard points, which didn't really have to be an issue back in the day, like breaking into top green, for example, on one of the sides when I used to be able to hop up with dexterity. That was certainly something that you could do. So, of course, like these maps come back, they're always going to play slightly different to how they did back in the day. And also something that has to be considered is the fact that Hardpoint nowadays plays quicker than it did back in the day. Like, and also the gameplay is quicker, first of all. I'm pretty sure the movement in this game is either quicker or just the teams in general play a lot quicker nowadays than they used to back in the day. So there's definitely some different Hardpoint play styles being used nowadays than were used originally when it was played back in 2013 when Black Ops 2 originally came out. So it's always going to feel somewhat different, especially early on when pros are just learning the map. But there has been concerns especially about the spawns, because as Trey says, I'm not going to lie, I don't think Standoff is the one for this game. Just doesn't feel good. Not sure whether he's talking about respawns here, whether he's talking about Search and Destroy. Honestly, the opportunity I got last night to play it in League Play and such, I had a great time on this map when I played it a couple of times in Search and Destroy. Haven't yet got a Standoff Hardpoint, unfortunately. The Cocods didn't want to bless me right there. But this was interesting from CDL right here. The fact that this jump spot never used to be a thing after top shutters from on this car. If you guys don't know, there's a spot on this car where you can stand on top of it right here and then look over the L wall and see up towards top grandmas. That's a classic spot in Search and Destroy that I was piecing people with in Search and Destroy League Play last night. But this never used to be a jump spot, I'm pretty sure. There's no way you could ever do this. This is like Cold War movement type stuff. It's not actually the end of the world. I think this is actually kind of cool. This is another, well, good reason I thought it might be a cool idea to have the control point in the bottom of this building and then have the spawns out towards back green, because this could be another way to break into this point for whatever reason. It is something you could potentially do in Hardpoint as well. So things have obviously changed on this map. There's so many great spots on this map which are also for Search and Destroy, but this is clearly another one that's coming into fashion maybe for the coming days. But however, the spawns in Hardpoint have really been the concern. Standoff spawns garbage, says easyBag right here. And as Shane says, of course, a player from back in the Black Ops 2 days can't see Standoff working without smokes. This is a very interesting question because this was raised back in the day when, okay, well, at least initially, crossing this map is very challenging. You want to rotate all the way to the 4th hill, for example, it's very difficult to get across some of those angles with a Krig, gunning you down with this incredible bullet velocity it has right now without, without a smoke grenade in your back pocket to actually block that line of sight off and get across the angle. So it's very interesting to see without smokes whether it can absolutely work right here. And, well, these are the questions here from RC. Standoff spawns are not it. What is going on? This one, for example, as you can see, they're over towards the P4 right here. You've got, well, it's kind of funny actually, just straight up leaks the Paris roster of Zaptius, Scraps, Temp, and Aqua. Of course, we've got Atlanta FaZe on the other side. And well, as you can see, that the FaZe guys are trying to push through. You've got number 2, that being Scraps here in bottom green. And, well, someone on the Paris Legion is going to have to spawn up in just a second. And he spawns right in the back barn right here, as you can see. Number 4 spawns right here, right next to player number 5. Now, very possibly, this guy probably should have spawned out towards gas. At the same time, Matt Sconce does go on to say in just a second the fact that maybe this, if they did change these spawns to some degree, it might affect you get more split spawns and stuff like this. So it's definitely an interesting question to keep on raising because, okay, the spawns back in the day on Standoff weren't exactly perfect. I mean, obviously people look at Black Ops 2 like it was a perfect game, but obviously there were imperfect spawns in that title as well. And on a relatively small map like Standoff, obviously these spawns do tend to happen. There was a part 2 as well from Arcitys when, you can kind of see actually, maybe I'll make it a little bit bigger, but you got this Paris Legion player walking down the left-hand side, and as you can see, 2 guys spawn right behind green, player number 7 and player 8, while he's on the other side of this hill. So a little bit of strange stuff. These spawns, I'm pretty sure, did used to happen back in the day as well. Maybe not perfectly ideal. And Matt Sconce from Track does come into the chat and kind of, well, discuss this a little bit. Tough one. I'm thinking a gas spawn would have been a bit more fair here since Simp and aBeZy were already tractor/tank. Granted, Scraps right behind Peter and got the kill. Worry is that adding that will introduce more split spawns into the game. So a tough one to deal with. Octane isn't particularly happy about it either. Standoff is meat. Sag explained. Spawns are doo-doo. It's super hard to block anything. Just so mixy. Modern Warfare, Flood, and Trade. I mean, that maybe is how the pros felt initially. Maybe that will be how it plays. Who really knows? This is the issue really with the fact that the pros have very little time to play this map. That effectively they play on it for one day of scrims, and that is all the experience they get on the map. And also in Hardpoint right now, most of the maps in Hardpoint are pretty decent, right? Do we necessarily need Standoff in the rotation? You could argue we do not. There's been a lot of discussion as to what you take out. Is Garrison bad enough? Is Apocalypse, for example, did you get rid of that? Checkmate, of course. I think Checkmate for Search and Destroy for Hardpoint, sorry, it's really damn good. Search and Destroy, very questionable indeed. So I think with Search will be fine. Control is another question entirely. And then, of course, you've got Hardpoint, where do we really need Standoff if it's not exactly playing spectacularly? And that's the thing. The pros really only have a couple of days of scrim practice to decide whether this map is actually good or not, which maybe isn't enough time to really, feel how the map could be played if it was played for quite a while, which is always the issue when it's Call of Duty, baby. That's just how these things tend to go. New maps being added all the time. As Parasite says, they look, spawns need some work, but the map is straight up amazing. It could work fantastically. From my experience playing it last night, I had a great time on it as well, and maybe you guys did as well. And I think, honestly, playing it in public matches as well is probably something which is certainly a breath of fresh air for it to be arriving. Nameless, another OG player of the scene, played a bunch of Standoff today in 8s, and first impressions are decent. It plays well. Spawns are similar, if not exactly the same, from Black Ops 2. Love that part, but no smokes made some of the traditional crosses a bit overpowered. Forgot how hard it was to cross boxes to P3. No smokes, absolutely forget it. And as I say, especially in this title right now, with the Krig shooting absolute laser beams, it's very difficult to cross in some of these situations. The guns just shoot so straight nowadays. Back in Black Ops 2, it was not so easy to get kills on the cross. I feel like the aim assist was a little bit lower. Beaming people with the M8 wasn't so easy. So there were some questions nowadays as to how exactly easy it is to shoot, and maybe the players even better nowadays than they were back in the day as well. That also is a bit of a concern. That maybe makes Standoff a little bit worse to play in terms of the respawn game modes. As Joey Nubsy says, hashtag bring back Crossroads. This is a very interesting point. Revan doesn't necessarily agree with him, but Crossroads Strike was a map in Hardpoint earlier this year, played for Stage 1, then it came out for Apocalypse. Should they bring it back? Personally, I think it was, especially that P4 down over the boxes, down near where the A-bomb is pretty ugly. Not sure I'm particularly a massive fan of that, and I don't really see what Crossroads would come in to replace, but some people certainly not particularly happy with the map set we have at the present time. But it was being played last night in some scrims. We saw Method's team, that being the UT crew, playing up against OpTic Chicago on stream. I think there was a couple of crazy comebacks they had on this map. They played it a couple of times. 250 to 249 OpTic win here on Standoff Hardpoint up against the boys of the UT crew right now. These were the entire scrim results that CDL Scrimtel put together last night, so I'm pretty sure OpTic ended up taking this one in something like a 7-3. They played Standoff twice in this series, Both maps went in a pretty similar fashion, very much down to the wire, which of course pretty entertaining stuff to see early on OpTic take the scrim set 7-3 overall, so still looking solid of course, and Moscow continues to be a pretty solid map for them at the present time, and of course it's only scrims. We'll have to see how they fare when stage 4 does officially begin. And just to finish off the video, I thought this is pretty damn interesting from Rad 11 stats. Points per possession. So this is all the hard points in the game right now. Which hard points are easiest to hold? I do very much wonder what this would look like with Standoff if it does get added into the game for hardpoint, because Raid, another OG map of the game, is very much, well, has a lot of money hills, right? And it feels like Standoff could play in a pretty similar way, where, you know, Granny's Hill, for example, a lot of the hills are pretty difficult to break, especially with the mantling being very loud, being very difficult to deal with. Getting into some of these buildings is pretty tough to do. I wonder if we would see something relatively similar to this, because on Checkmate, you see this P3, for example, is very difficult to score. Effectively, this means that when one team has control of the hardpoint, how many points do they get on average before it gets turned over to the other team? And for Checkmate, this is only 10 points on P3. Of course, you can see that this hill 2, surprisingly, to be honest, like the fact that hill 2 seems to be such a money hill in theory, as does P5 on Checkmate, you don't actually get too many points on it compared to Garrison P2 and P3. And then Raid, pretty much all the hills are money hills in a sense. Even P5 you get quite a lot of time on compared to some of the other rotations. But of course, like Garage over here and Basketball, you get a lot of time on these hills. And I wonder if it's something similar on Standoff right now, where some of the pros think, okay, maybe the way you're playing hardpoint nowadays isn't exactly compatible with how Standoff is going to work. I think I'd love to see it back. I think it will be back in Search and Destroy at the very least, but it does remain to be seen over the coming days exactly what the pros will decide to do. Of course, it's already been added to League Play for hardpoint and Search and Destroy, whether I guess they will copy whatever the pros decide to do for the Pro League in due course, and well, we'll have to see what that ends up being. But enjoy taking your thoughts in the comment section below. Hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you did enjoy it, I'd greatly appreciate a like on the video. It really helps out the YouTube algorithm that you enjoyed this content. Other people like you may enjoy this content as well, and I've grown the competitive Call of Duty community. Thank you for watching as always, take care, and I will see you next time.